Hey everyone, Life Coach Carissa here. If you've ever sent a text and then spent the next 3 hours in a mental tailspin because they haven't replied, I want you to know you aren't dramatic and you aren't needy. You're likely dealing with an anxious attachment style, or what I often call the not enough wound. Today, we're digging into why we job out our peace to other people, where that wiring actually comes from, and how to build a foundation where you are finally enough exactly as you are. I hope you are ready to gain some clarity. Let's dive in. Welcome back to my channel. This month, we are shifting our focus to nervous system capacity in our relationships. And we're looking at how our inherited wiring impacts the way we connect with others, and specifically why we often feel like we have to earn our worth just to feel secure. So I'm going to start with a question that I think most of us can relate to. Have you ever sent a text or an email to someone, a partner, a friend, or even a boss, and then spent the next 3 hours in a mental tailspin because they haven't replied yet? Your brain starts creating these wild stories, right? Are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Am I about to be fired or broken up with? If that sounds familiar, you aren't crazy and you aren't needy. You're probably experiencing something referred to as anxious attachment. But I sometimes like to call it the not enough wound. It's that constant unsettled feeling in your chest or that pit in your stomach that tells you that safety is a moving target. It tells you that if you aren't constantly performing or overgiving or checking the mirror of other people's opinions, that you could be pushed aside. And so today I want to talk about where that wiring comes from, and more importantly, how you can finally stop jobbing out your self-worth to people who were never meant to carry it, because I am living proof and here to tell you how you can start reclaiming your power and validate yourself. So I want to dive into anxious attachment a bit so you can look for signs of its presence in your own life. In simple terms, anxious attachment is a nervous system that has been wired to believe that proximity equals safety. So if you have this attachment style, your internal smoke alarm is calibrated to detect any hint of distance, coldness, or shifts in relationship. Because your brain once learned that being pushed aside was a threat to your survival. And it now reacts to a slow response or a partner's bad mood as if maybe you're being abandoned in the woods. And this is why you can feel it so deeply, because it robs you of your peace. Now, I want to give you some examples of how it presents itself in real life, because I think it's rarely a constant state. It's more of a reaction state that usually looks like one of these three things potentially. One is the hyper-vigilant radar. So you can be a pro at reading the room, you notice a change in a coworker's tone or facial expressions, or maybe the fact that your spouse or partner didn't kiss you goodbye exactly the same way they normally do. You'll spend hours analyzing, what did that mean? Did I do something? Number two is the fixer energy. When you feel disconnected, you can't rest. You might send checking in texts or over-explain yourself or really ruminate about it in your mind. Maybe you'll try to be extra helpful or perfect just to win back that feeling of being okay. And number three is this mental tailspin. You create a narrative, your brain creates a narrative where the silence is always about you. They're bored with me. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I did something wrong. I want to ask you, can you relate to any of those examples? Because I can see myself in all of them. But I have created so much awareness around this that I can spot it as soon as it presents itself in my mind and body, and I catch it and I pivot. It does work beautifully most of the time. I'm human, so it still gets me every now and then, but nothing at all like it used to be. Now, this anxious attachment topic is not something that people are coming to me and saying, hey, Carissa, I think I have anxious attachment. Can you help me? No, often there are these unique root cause symptoms that each individual presents with that can be different. And this is why I share all of this information with you, because knowledge is power. You have to see it to be able to change it. So what I notice is that most people don't come looking for that anxious attachment specifically. They come looking for relief from exhaustion. And here's why I think that this topic is so relevant right now more than ever. There's three things. I think there's a technology trap. We live in a time where this the read receipts and last active timestamps. For someone with this wiring, technology is a 24/7 trigger. And the apps alone and just scrolling and pulling information and data from that, they really want to learn how to stop being a slave to their devices and these apps. Number 2 is this burnout from earning. People are tired of the hustle. I know that's where my journey started. They realize they're overperforming in their relationships, their jobs, and they're just trying to feel safe. And they're hitting this wall of burnout, and it's taking a toll. And then I think the third thing can be the cycle of why. I think that we're tired of why am I like this loop. We want to understand why we're smart, capable adults who suddenly feel like a panicked child when a relationship feels slightly off. And I strongly believe that people want and need to learn about this because they want their power back. They want to move from reacting to choosing. And they want to feel solid in their own skin, regardless of how someone else is responding to them in that moment. And you know what? This tendency is not just isolated to a certain age bracket. I literally see this present in every age group I interact with, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And I am not going to be focused on telling you how to stop being anxious, which is also impossible for a primitive brain. I am teaching you how to expand your capacity to sit with the discomfort of that gap without your whole system crashing. And this is building a strong, resilient foundation, which is something that we should all want. In my book, Why Am I Like This? I talk a lot about inherited programming. We absolutely learn how to survive and cope from our parents and caregivers, those that we spent the most time with and were heavily influenced by. And for me, I grew up with a father who often said the phrase, good enough never is. He was so hard on himself and had such high expectations. And if you think about that for a second, if good enough is never enough, then the finish line for your worth doesn't really exist. And so I found that I kept not knowing where that line was of good enough, which led in overworking, overproducing, overworrying, and burnout. And my relationship with him, unfortunately, was very hot and cold. I never knew if I was going to get the sliver of loving version of him or if it was going to be the disconnected, distant, angry version of him. So as a child, I learned to be very hyper-vigilant. I became an expert at reading a room, feeling everyone's energy just to make sure that I was safe. And I thought that I wasn't impressive enough or smart enough. Because I didn't take the traditional educational path, I thought that I didn't have as much worth. And that plagued me my entire life with those old same programmed thoughts and beliefs. So maybe for you, it was a mother who was a people pleaser, right? Always took care of everyone else. So you inherited that belief that that's how you need to be. Or maybe you were in a household where you only got attention when you won the trophy or were doing really great. You learned that love is a performance-based thing. But here's the truth. Your parents were often just managing their own out of control emotional networks. I wholeheartedly believe this. And they weren't withholding love because of you. They were unable to give you what they didn't have. So you inherited their wiring, but it doesn't mean that it has to be your identity. And that's when I changed my life. So what I see is that when we carry this not enough wound, we start using everyone else as a mirror to tell us that we're okay. We look at our partner, our husband, our boss, our friends, or even the likes on social media posts to validate us. And I'll be honest with you, even in my own relationship, my own marriage, I spent years feeling like I couldn't live without my husband. I would not survive without my husband. I thought it was a sweet sentiment, but the reality was that I was putting tremendous amount of pressure on him to entertain me or to make me feel better every single day. And that truly was a recipe for exhaustion. Because when you use someone else as your mirror, you're at the mercy of their bad day, their lack of sleep, or their own unresolved triggers. Validation, confidence, and safety are things that we have to learn to generate from within. It's like a physical ailment. No one else can tell you how your body feels. They can only give you their perspective based on their life. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we letting other people diagnose our emotional worth or our emotional state? So I want to share 2 ideas for how to fix this. The reality is we don't just self-love our way out of this deep wiring. We are going to have to reprogram the machine through repetition. So here's 2 things that I did in my life that were extremely powerful. Number 1 is the 30-second mirror audit. I took this idea from Mel Robbins' high 5 habit. Years ago, I started talking to myself for 15 or 20 seconds every morning, like right after I brushed my teeth. And I'll be real with you, it felt weird and silly, and I cried at first because I wasn't used to looking at myself in the eye and being kind. But I did it every day straight for 30 days, and then it just became a part of my morning routine, and I still do it today. And I became my own cheerleader. And now I can tell you that I have not said an unkind word to myself in years. It's crazy, it sounds simple, but it was the foundation of me building this internal worth and validation and extreme emotional resilience within myself. And the second one is like a strengths inventory. Like, stop looking at where you're deficient, because we hear that noise all around us, right? Instead, I want you to notice where people naturally praise you. And for me, I never saw this, but I didn't value my own intelligence because it wasn't the academic route. But then I started to notice that people were always coming to me for mentorship or emotional support. And that strength had always been there. I just had to stop comparing it to someone else's benchmark, someone else's journey. And so once I was able to see that when I actively pursued concepts like this, it opened new doors for fulfillment and joy in my own life. This type of personal growth was the foundation that allowed me to transform my life into one where I feel and experience deep contentment and peace in my day-to-day life. And because I'm going to keep it real with you, it never means life is perfect. My life is not perfect. I still have days where I get hung up on something. I don't sleep well, or my dog wakes me up at 3:45 in the morning because she's about to have an accident and I can't get her outside fast enough. And then I feel a bit off for the rest of the day, which, hey, that was my true story from this morning. But the difference is I now ride the wave. I truly have found a way to be so strong with this, and it has changed my life. I recognize that life is going to be a sequence of ups and downs. When I'm at the top, I enjoy the bliss. When I'm in the crash, I don't add suffering on top of it by telling myself I'm failing or I'm not good enough, right? I don't add pain on top of an already difficult life. I talk about this all the time, and I mean it so much. I tattooed a wave on my wrist so that I constantly remind myself that life is a series of ups and downs. And I am just riding that wave, enjoying it when I can, supporting myself when it's tough. Because I want you to know that you are a human being. You are not a productivity project. You are allowed to be vulnerable. You are allowed to be flawed. But spend a small amount of time each day growing through ideas such as this, and I promise you your payoff will be worth it. I want you to know that I believe in you, and I know a little bit of knowledge and inspiration. With that, you can rewire your brain and mindset so it is working for you and not against you. All right, everyone, here's what I want you to remember. Reclaiming your worth doesn't mean your life suddenly becomes this flat line of perfection. We're human, which means we're always going to have those days where we feel a bit off or the old not enough voice tries to whisper in our ear. But the difference now is that you have more tools to ride the wave. You've built the internal safety to have your own back, even when things feel uncertain, and you aren't fixing yourself because you're broken. You're expanding your capacity so you can finally enjoy the life that you're working so hard to build. Now, if you're tired of overperforming and you're ready to finally feel solid in who you are, I'm here to support you. A great place to start is by grabbing your copy of my book, Why Am I Like This? It's designed to help you uncover those specific survival triggers so you can start rewriting your story from the bottom up. If you're in my area, you can find it at the local library, or you can also find it on Amazon. And if you're ready for a deeper personalized approach, let's talk about working one-on-one. Together, we can look at your unique wiring and get you to the other side of that not enough wound. All right, everyone, stay present, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next deep dive. Have a beautiful day.